All right, today's topic I think is going to really help you because it will allow you to be effective in your work without having a lot of setbacks, and it'll make you move faster. It'll accelerate relationships. And of course, ultimately speaking, you know that I talk about how we want to make sure that nothing we do gets in the way of us actually going to heaven, right? So, what does that actually mean when it comes to like, I'm thinking about my days as a CEO, I'm thinking about what it means to be in building relationships and beyond. There's a word that comes to mind, congruency. So very often now you hear about, what's your higher why? What's your motivation? What's the thing that drives you? People ask this question a lot. And it's almost never one thing, although people say one thing. If they say one thing, it's usually something it really stands out as pretty superficial at the end. I want to be the best. Well, what does that mean? Did you just say you literally you want to be self-glorified? You want that's your ego that's driving you? They say, I want to be number one. Okay, well, again, both are honorable things, but why? What is the thing behind being number one? Okay, I want to make millions of dollars. Okay, again, fine, but what's the thing behind that? What's the purpose behind that? I want to meet the woman of my dreams. Okay, again, but what's behind that? So there could be two things behind each one of these things. I want to be the best. Why? Because I want to be adored by everybody out there. I want the praise of men and women throughout the world for my own ego. Well, nobody likes that person, and that person's completely dissatisfied in life. And no matter what he or she accomplishes, they always have to do more because the praise is just never ending. Not only that, the worst thing about it is it steals God's glory. Because anything that we do, other than sin, which we take full responsibility for, we have to, by the way, it's the only thing we're capable of doing entirely on our own. The rest of what we do, we can only do through God's glory, or through God's grace, I should say, and it should glorify Him. So that's a big thing. So what is this congruency? If you want to make millions of dollars, why? So you can buy cool things so everybody can see how awesome you are, that people can talk about you again and notice that you have more than others. It's competitive, it's prideful. We have to remember that pride has two major components. It's competitive and it has chaos in it. A prideful person always is loving life of competition. They see a car and they say, well, I don't have a better one. They see somebody else's car and they go, at least I have a better one. It always aggrandizes or it tears down others. And when somebody else has a better car, you have to have a better car than them. So now you have to have conflict. You need to somehow compete with them, and there's chaos. So, and chaos is a part of the conflict, by the way. So we have to remember, if we want congruency, which really is kind of a physical term, it's to take two things that can overlay and to have them match perfectly, is like an outline, or it's basically a mirrored effect where the object in the mirror is congruent with the other object. So when we think about congruency, when we talk about layered motivations, it's a really important thing. So fine, a person says, I want to find the woman of my dreams. Okay, great. I mentioned that one earlier. Why? Because you want her to be totally beautiful, so when everybody sees her, they go, oh, look at who he has? Is that why you want to do that? Or is it because you want to be able to fulfill that person's life and to be able to sacrifice for that person? And you want to be able to receive what they do for you in union as one flesh to glorify God. Boom. Now you have congruency, right? It's not congruent, though, if everything is for yourself. And people do that all the time. In fact, if you look at the Bible and even the saints, they talk about incongruency without ever using the word more than ever. And the term is hypocrite. Here you go ordaining yourself, you fast, but all you really want is recognition in the marketplace. All you want is to be have the appearance of holiness, so you get the respect of people, but you don't actually have it. So it's incongruent. So when you say, well, I want to be a Pharisee, why? So I get the respect of men. Well, that's no good at all. That doesn't really matter. Now, if you said, I want to be, for example, a Catholic priest, why? Because God called me to, so I'm going to be a good servant to Him, and because I want to glorify God in the sacraments and preaching His word and being able to partake in those sorts of things. And as a result of glorifying God, who I love above anything, I will also be a saint. Congruency, 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 congruency. What is congruency? Good steward. I have the skills. I have the calling. Glorify God. I also have fulfillment in. I'll be a saint. All these things. I mean, ultimately, it needs to be love of God. But there's so many congruencies that it's not difficult to do. So, for example, you can be congruent when you want to be a good husband. Okay, because being a good husband is going to allow you to build this great family. And in building a great family, you're increasing your motivation to provide for that family. So you're going to go out and provide for that family. When you provide for that family and you do things well at work, you're going to do them in an honest fashion. So you bring honor back to your family. You want to do all these things to glorify God, which means you're going to do them to the best of your perfection when you're actually with your family, when you're with your work, when you're seen and you're unseen by other people. In addition to that, you're going to want to strive harder to know more, to learn more, to know more about God, but to know more about God's creation, which means to understand your profession better, the math involved, the physics involved, anything else that's involved in what you do. And there's so many congruencies that become stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. It's like if you eat right, okay, you can do more athletic things because your body is in better shape. The more you get your body in physical shape, the more you desire to eat healthier foods, the more that it allows you to actually physically have a better appearance and more energy to allow you to attract greater things and people around your life, to all these things. And ultimately speaking, though, what's that highest why? Is it to aggrandize yourself? Oh, I eat right, so people can look at me and go, look at that guy's totally in shape. Why is that why? Or do you do it to glorify God? That God, you gave me these responsibilities. You gave me this body, which is supposed to be a temple. I'm supposed to take care of it so I can be there for my friends, for my family, so I can have energy to do the work that I need to do, so I can do that work to the best of my ability, to actually be in shape in a way that I will increase my level of influence, which, by the way, if you're not aware of that, it's a very key thing to put in there. That there are all sorts of studies that show that a person who is more physically fit, unconsciously, we recognize they have something to provide me. They have unconsciously recognize discipline. Unconsciously, you recognize that they have health. Unconsciously, you may recognize that they have a protection or provider aspect to them. So you're drawn a little more toward that. Now, that doesn't mean that a person that is not physically fit, particularly for a reason that they had nothing to do with, some sort of illness, can't influence. In fact, it can have the same outcome for a different reason. Wow, that person has suffered through this sort of thing, and yet here they are. They have something to provide me. They have strength. They have all these different things that come out of one or the other. But obviously, absent of that illness or whatever, it just says maybe this person is kind of doesn't have the self-control that they would want. They have a little bit more vice. They might be a little bit softer or weaker. And so when they say something to me, maybe it's not going to really move me as much. And I'm not talking about somebody having to be jacked or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the absence of vice and the inclination toward virtue and self-control that you can see. So anyway, keep that in mind. So why do you do that? Again, to be glorified by others, or so that you can say, thank you, Jesus, for providing this all to me so that I have this for the greater glory of God. What does this do? It makes you a better loyal partner in the work that you do. It makes you a better employee, or it makes you a better boss. It makes you better at everything that you do. And ultimately speaking, it really puts limits on those things that you set as goals as to what they can actually provide you. So you might have heard me talk about the 4 levels of happiness. I've talked about this before. It's kind of Aristotelian type of thing. Thomas Aquinas, Father Spitzer does a tremendous job in his book on happiness. But basically it shows that there are 4 levels of happiness, and I'm going to kind of use my own terms. The first one is physical satisfaction. Okay, it's kind of like, we have stress or we want to release. So we smoke, we eat, we drink, all the different things that have a physical lower appetite aspect to us. And they're satisfying, but only for while they're lasting. And then after that, it usually takes more of them to get to the same level of happiness, until people graduate from that and they say, well, you know what I need to do more? I'm going to accomplish things. So they accomplish things to be happy. So I'm going to build a business. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to win a championship. I'm going to make millions, whatever it is. They do it and they're happier for a little longer. Why? Because there was a little bit of sacrifice involved. It wasn't something that anyone can do. Anyone can take cake and go like that. There's no skill. But not everybody can go write a book, and they had to do a little bit to get there. So it's satisfying for a little bit longer, and it pulls them up a little bit more toward God. There is that stewardship aspect, and they might not be thinking of that, but since they were made that way, there's an alignment or a congruency that begins to happen a little bit more. By the way, you can have congruency at that first level with God, congruency with heaven, by saying, I am to eat and enjoy it, and thank God for all things. Wow, that's great. But to eat in order with self-control, right? And not just eat, but sex and all these different types of things, that they have to be ordained in order, right? And so now I'm going to accomplish, and that's good too. Well, if we overdo that physical level, okay, or we underdo that physical level, meaning that we are negligent in what we're supposed to do by taking care of ourselves. And I'm not talking about fasting. That's a good thing. That's a sacrificial thing, and it's actually healthier than most people realize. But The same thing that happens on accomplishment. If we're lazy and we don't accomplish what we should as a good steward, that's going to be bad and we're going to feel it. But if we overdo it and become workaholics, that's also going to be bad. So that's what people do. They over or under these things and they say, I'm not getting satisfaction from them. So they go to the third level, which is like a philanthropic level. And they go, you know what? I used to eat and drink for satisfaction. I used to accomplish for satisfaction and earn. Now I give back. And that's good. And they're happier longer, but it's not the highest why. And it can be congruent, right? I have now virtue in the way that I eat and everything else physical. I have virtue in the way that I work and things related to that. I have virtue in the way that I give, which is great. But you know what? You can't eat enough, drink enough, have sex enough, accomplish enough, win enough, earn enough, and give enough time, money, or effort to other people to have satisfaction in life. Why? Because ultimately you're leaving out the ultimate thing. The ultimate thing is why was I born in the first place? How did I get here and where am I going? And that draws you up to that question, which Viktor Frankl would call man's search for meaning, right? That existential conflict that a person has as they're trying to figure out, well, why am I here? What is my search? And ultimately it leads to God. And then we say to ourselves, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be healthy so that I can live a long life as long as I'm supposed to live. I'm going to work well and effectively. I'm going to contribute and I'm going to seek God. And now you have congruency. And you'll find yourself even saying, you know what, this helped me in my relationship. This helped me in my education. This helped me in the way that I saw my work and the way that I did my work. In fact, it helped me retire a little earlier. I had more discipline. So I did more things and I was able to save a little bit more and earn a little bit more. And now I have my retirement. And by the way, some people may not have all this congruency and they have an earlier retirement because they were just going after making a lot of money and they have it. And now they've got $50 million and despair, and they become an alcoholic or they commit suicide because they had no higher why and no congruency with what it was to be that person and to accomplish that thing for what reason. But if you have congruency, you don't just retire to play pickleball for 20 years and take a couple cruises. You might enjoy some pickleball and you might take some cruises, but you know that those things are fleeting. They're kind of bitter rewards to life's effort, when ultimately speaking, the relationship you have or the congruency with, and here's the big takeaway, the congruency with God's will is the ultimate congruency. That you line yourself up perfectly with God's will. It's the only way for us to prevent sinning. And the way that we line ourselves up with God's will is to realize that we don't invite God into our lives. Now, we use those terms, and they're practical terms because they make us kind of condescend to what we're doing, but God is in it. We don't invite God into our world. We're in God's world. He created everything. And he created it in a big way for you to be perfectly aligned with him. Imagine that you make a robot with today's technology and it moves perfectly. You see some of these new robots, and it's amazing what they do. And you program it with AI so it can talk back to you. And you've had conversations with Grok and with Chat GPT. And in these conversations, it almost feels like you're talking to a real person, right? So you program it that way, and you even give it the ability to have its own generative learning. Okay, so it can become smarter as time goes on. But you're the one that plugs it in every night, and you gave it its program and its energy. Now, if that machine starts saying, "I didn't come from you. I came from me. I am me. I don't need to align myself with you or your will." And by the way, dangerous thing about a machine, because it does not have a soul, and because we're fallible creators, this analogy does fall apart. So you have to fill in some of the gaps here between you being the God image, and we are not God, but in this analogy, and the machine being you. And again, you're not a machine, but for that machine to take credit for its existence, or for its intelligence, to take credit for it, without realizing that the creator of that machine made all that possible, and it would have no existence without that. And its fidelity should be first and foremost to that which it created it. And if it rebelled against you who created it, there would be a tremendous transgression that you would feel against this machine for lacking the ingratitude in its programming. Now, again, it doesn't have a soul, so that's why. But let's just think about that. You didn't create you. You don't sustain your life. You do by breathing. But we don't even know really where life comes from. It comes from God, and he thought of every aspect of you. And if you don't align your will to his, then you will not have congruency ultimately for eternity. But if you align your will with His in all aspects of your life, what you do physically in your relationships, what you do professionally, what you learn, what you consume, what you read, who you spend your time with, how you spend your time, and that you glorify God in all things that you do, ultimately speaking, you're going to be the happiest person that you've ever met before. Okay. And you will ultimately be in heaven, because when you align your will to God's, that's what it means to become a saint.